Hello and welcome to another edition of the E-commerce Odyssey podcast. I'm here with Gwen from Prehook. Prehook is a supplier, a software solution for running quizzes on Shopify stores. So we're going to talk about how and why you should run a quiz on your Shopify store. So without further ado, why should merchants be using quizzes on their stores?
Well, first of all, Trevor, hey, good morning. Thanks so much for having me. So great question. Let's just get right into it. So the quiz is critical right now because brands no longer have the channels that they used to have to run profitable ads. Historically, a DTC brand, direct-to-consumer brand, could spin up some advertisements, some online ads, know exactly who they're reaching, what the messaging is, and all the data that they would that you're gathering from Facebook. And Google would help create targeted ads. Now things have changed. We have iOS 14, third-party cookies being deprecated. So the platforms that brands have been using historically to acquire customers, it has changed a lot. So we're seeing cost per clicks increasing, cost per acquisition increasing, and it's harder for brands to understand who they're targeting and how they're going to target them. Enter the quiz. So the quiz is basically asking questions of customers, a few questions, learn maybe what their challenges are, what they're looking for, what their preferences, their goals, and basically just trying to learn more about them. Then you're capturing a lead because ultimately you want to build a direct relationship with your customer and then recommending a product. So in short, the benefits of a quiz are to improve conversion rate, and you do that by simplifying the buying process. Think of, an in-person sales associate, or think of a sommelier at a restaurant or a barista at a coffee shop. You want to get to know your customers and recommend a product. Then the second main benefit is to accelerate list growth. And ultimately, the value of a brand is in the asset that you're growing in your list. That includes your email or your SMS. And the third most perhaps important benefit is to capture zero-party data. So let me just quickly define zero-party data. Zero-party data is data that a customer directly and willingly shares with a brand, and compare that with first-party data, which is passively captured. So that could be stuff like their purchase history, or as in what they bought or how much they spent, or their engagement with a website, an abandoned cart, or visiting a certain product page, or maybe you're capturing where they live based on the billing address or the shipping address. But the challenge there is that there are a lot of assumptions in there. But when you're asking something directly of a customer, you're no longer getting an assumption, but you're actually getting verified answers from the customer. And the benefit is you understand the why. And once you understand the why and the mentality of a customer, then you can do a far better job of positioning your brand to address their specific needs, and then kind of bridge the gap from where they currently are to where they want to go. And you're inserting your brand and your product specifically in there to help them achieve their goals. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do as marketers, right? Is help customers address the problems that they're trying to solve.
So so I think there's a more basic question I didn't ask, which is, what is a quiz in the kind of Shopify theme? Because when I said, I don't know very much. I know what a quiz is. For me, a quiz is, when you go to the pub and you answer a pub quiz, general knowledge or something like that. So can you give me some examples of what you mean by a quiz in the Shopify context?
Yeah, sure. So a quiz
is it like a questionnaire, or is it a quiz? There's a difference between a quiz and a questionnaire.
No, not really. Not really. A quiz is simply asking a few questions. And so there are different use cases and there are different points in the customer journey. So you could have one on your website, like, hey, how are you doing? What are you looking for? What are you in the market for? What are your sizes? And if we use your site, Hello Baby, as an example, maybe you have a large range of products and a large range of potential ages and needs, right? Like all the way from a newborn to kindergarten. But those needs are vastly different, even though you're essentially selling kids products, baby products. But what if you know the gender of the customer or the person who's going to be using it, boy or girl? Or what if it's the age, or what specific need it is, whether it's a clothing or cribs or strollers. So these are simple data points that will really add a lot of information and light into how you want to market to this person. So yeah, to answer your question, what is a quiz? Quiz is simply asking a few questions so that you get a better understanding of the problem that you're trying to solve, the customer that you're serving. And then from there, it has a lot of benefits that extend into the customer experience. So that's on site, what products you recommend immediately after they take the quiz. Then it's kind of like the flow. So you're using Klaviyo for Hello Baby.
Yeah.
You're building a flow, like as in like a welcome series after they opt in, right? And I don't know what your flow is right now, but just in general, marketers do best if they are able to tailor and personalize a message specific to Trevor's needs or specific to my needs as a parent as well. And so that's the data that you're gathering in the quiz. And with our product, for example, and a lot of them, they will integrate directly with Klaviyo. So you're getting all the key information of age, gender, whether they're looking for what type of baby product they're looking for. And then you can create a flow specific to those needs after they take the quiz. And so you're just ramping up the personalization and the relevance, which is ultimately how you're able to cut through the noise, a tremendous amount of noise that they're getting in their inbox all the time.
So how do you actually incentivize people to answer a quiz? I mean, is it something where you have to say, give people like a discount voucher, or is it just, you just keep it very short and sweet?
Yeah, I think, at its core, you're appealing to their human nature. So we as humans love to learn about, guess who? Ourselves. Like that is, we are always on this quest for self-discovery. So if you're able to offer something that incites a little bit of curiosity or wanting to learn more. And so this is where your direct response copywriting or your ad copy can matter, because you want to have create some curiosity gap and ultimately offer something of value to the customer. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a coupon or a discount, but it could be, hey, let me help simplify your buying experience. So let me tell you what you need. Just give us a few bits of information and I'll tell you. Or it could be a personalized routine, or it could be, here's 5 things that you need to know about your newborn or your 2-year-old or 5-year-old. So if you can basically understand what your customers are looking for, how you can add value, that is enough. And then you're adding the hook being, how can I create some curiosity and offer value to the customer? So I think that's enough to incentivize them to take the quiz.
Okay. So what point in the buying journey should presumably the quiz is some sort of pop up on the site?
No, not necessarily. So there are different points, of course. So you could use it at the very top of funnel. And so we see a lot of brands that are finding success with this. So they will plaster it on the homepage in the hero image. It'll be on the header nav, the footer nav. It could be a landing page for a paid ad. And also it's a landing page for email traffic. So you think, okay, building a list is critical, but what if I already have their email? Then I probably don't need a quiz. Well, you'd be wrong there, because the quiz adds a lot more color and dimension than just an email. So when you just have an email, you're capturing a lead for, say, 10% off your first purchase. That's great because you have their email, but you don't know the first thing about how to message them or what type of product they're in the market for, and how you can kind of like unfold your brand or product to speak to their needs. And so that's where the quiz is helpful at the top of the customer journey. Then you have people who are using the quiz after a purchase, and that can be helpful because you're learning, you can get some attribution data. So a post-purchase quiz is helpful to understand which are the actual marketing channels. You can look at Google Analytics for first touch or last touch attribution, but really you want to know from their mind, how did they hear about you? So that's a very helpful use case. The next is maybe you can understand what's their feedback on the product, and then maybe what other needs they still have. And so this is where a brand is able to drive up their lifetime value with repeat purchases. So a quiz is more of just the tool, but the main importance is what you're learning of your customers. And I think that there is no end to the value of what you can learn from customers, all the way from first touch through after they've purchased.
Okay, so does a quiz in what, obviously quizzes integrate with things like email. So how do you see it fits in with other types of social media, like other types of media, for example, social media?
Yeah. So like I was saying, it can be a great hook for a landing page. or an ad. And so we'll see brands, quizzes, they kind of like came into popularity. If you, in the UK, I think there's BuzzFeed, New York Times as well. They have quizzes. And so it's like just a great engagement tool because people love to find out maybe what personality type they are, or what type of coffee best fits their palate. And whatever curiosity there is, a quiz can play to that. And so in terms of social media, it could be for an ad like, hey, what I'm thinking of a women's lingerie brand that does a great job with a quiz called Third Love. You know, like you're playing to their problem, like find a bra that doesn't hurt as much, or simplify the buying process. Take our 2-minute quiz to figure out how. And so you're kind of like working in what the benefit is, as well as what they can learn and what the benefit in the short term is. And from there, it becomes just a landing page. So you're having your cost per click, and it's a lead gen because you're capturing the email or SMS where you can send the results. But then it's just a way to get them to your site. And so it's different in that sense, because you're asking a few questions, then getting the best product to them, as opposed to maybe a less targeted, more generic ad, which would be like, you know, do you need baby supplies or baby clothes?
Right.
And so it's perhaps might not be as compelling speaking to the customer directly.
Okay, so how do you measure? Because it seems to me that it's about, a lot of this is to do with list enhancement, to getting more data about your customers. How do you measure the success of what you do, or whether
totally.
it worked for someone?
Yeah, I mean, this is where I love the product and seeing the success of the brands that we're working with. I mean, it's top line revenue. Like what?
So how would you measure the top line? I'm just saying, what process would you go through? I kind of am a marketer, but I'm not like retention marketing is not really not one of my strong points, right? So
sure.
How would you know that you're getting more revenue from these customers that had a quiz?
Yeah, I mean, in our product, that's simply just looking at the number. So we track revenue based on if they added a product to the cart, or if they bought the cart or bought the product that was recommended and they took the quiz, then it counts as revenue attributed to the quiz. So in the product, you can just see like, all right, here's your people that started the quiz, people that finished the quiz. Here's the revenue that the quiz generated. Here are the leads that you gathered. So those are some of the key metrics. And then, of course, you can look in Google Analytics, for example, and you can take a segment of those who took the quiz and those who did not take the quiz. And then from there, how do they differ? You can see average order value might be different. Conversion rate ideally would be higher from those that took the quiz. And then you're looking at your lead growth and your list. So on a standard pop-up, you might see a benchmark of 2 to 5% that would opt in, you know, here, join our club or sign up for our VIP newsletter. But for those that take the quiz, you might see that it would be, you know, 70-80% completion rate. And then of those, you know, everybody would, I mean, it could be optional, but enter their email address. So, you know, do the math there, back the envelope math. We're seeing brands that are seeing 3, 4, 5x an opt-in rate to grow their list. So ultimately, to answer your question, the key metrics are revenue, list growth, and then harder to put a value on the zero-party data that you're gathering. But a quiz ultimately plays towards conversion rate and list growth.
Okay. So what kind of, I mean, have you seen the kind of brands that benefit most from running quizzes? Are there brands that do better than others?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think there are several different profiles of brands that do well. Skincare brands, fragrance brands, food and beverage, apparel, accessories, but where there are different use cases. So you can simplify the buying process. Like you, for example, you have a lot of different brands, a lot of SKUs, and a lot of different products. So you can simplify the buying process. And I think that's a great use case, which is basically the product recommendation. Then the other challenge are the brands that, or the types of products where an in-person experience is kind of like makes it easier to purchase. So in that case, for example, you'll see a lot of skincare brands. If you go to a Sephora in the US, you might have somebody in person who can evaluate what your skin is, think in their mind of the inventory that they have available. Here, this foundation matches your skin tone. Try this. Or you like the smell of citrus and flowers and woodsy stuff. Try this fragrance. So where it would be easy in person, online is a very different experience, and you're putting the onus on the shopper to know these things, but they don't necessarily know. Wines use quizzes a lot. They don't know what a tannic structure is, or they don't know what type of acidity they like, but they might know if they like dark chocolate, coffee, or vanilla. And so if you're able to simplify it, ask people in questions that they can easily answer, then you can recommend a product. That's a type of brand or use case that a quiz could be very valuable.
Okay, so I was trying to buy a washing machine the other day because my washing machine broke. Right?
Oh yeah, you're buying it online.
And I bought one. I spent all the money I was saving up to buy a robot vacuum cleaner on this washing machine. So I know life's tough. And I look at the washing machine. I don't care about washing machines. I just want it to work. But I was just like, I didn't know what to. It would have been useful perhaps at that point to have a quiz. What do you want out of a washing machine? It was difficult. I mean, I didn't know what to get.
Yeah, totally. And then think from the merchant's perspective. I mean, I would be the same way. I would basically be using heuristics to make my decision. So the first probably would be price. Then it would be maybe reviews, number of reviews and ratings. That's very similar to the Amazon shopper mentality. But what if it were you were looking for one that had certain space constraints, or had a certain design, or something like color? If the brand were able to know these things, then maybe they could use that to upsell you to one that speaks to those particular needs. And if you can extrapolate out, what you'd see is maybe like a higher likelihood of purchase, or a higher average order value. If we're to say, hey, Trevor, you probably need this extension cord because you're using it in your garage, or silly example, but if you're able to know more about what you're looking for, then we can tailor and package the product, the washing machine, as well as like the supporting point of why you should buy this particular washing machine, and do a far better job at marketing it to you.
Did you find that this reduces returns, or that?
That's hard for me to quantify, because I don't necessarily have a lot of visibility into that. But I think that what you're seeing is maybe like a better likelihood. So there are statistics, and I think that Segment and Accenture have put together stuff on personalization. And so if brands are able to personalize their marketing, I think that's kind of like the main area where brands can differentiate in 2022 and beyond, is personalization. They're seeing higher lifetime value, higher repeat purchases. So that can kind of play towards return rates.
Okay, so great. I'm going to shamelessly ask you for some advice now. So let's talk about my business. I have a business that sells, as you say, it's called Hello Baby. It sells everything from kind of newborn stuff through to kind of preschool stuff, so 5 or so. We have a lot of kind of quite gifty stuff. We also have some more complicated items, like we sell some car seats and stuff like that. So if I knew nothing, and we send a lot of people in from Google Shopping, what would be a good starter? How would we get the most benefit out of a quiz the quickest?
Yeah, totally. So I'm looking at your site now. First of all, the end user is not going to be your shopper, right? I mean, they're buying it for kids, or they're buying it for a gift. So that's probably the first thing, is like, you're assuming that you'd want to know who's going to be using it. So the main categories, it seems, are bath and meals, nursery, safety, toys. Yeah. One really helpful thing is like, are they buying for their own family, or are they buying for a gift? Because gift purchases, they probably want to get out faster. So that's where the product recommendation can be super helpful. And what you're looking for is basically like, the way I'm thinking about it on the spot is, are you buying it for yourself or a gift? Who are you buying it for? So we have a brand that we're working with. It's called Auto Brush, and it's basically toothbrushes. And so they sell kids products. And how many kids are you buying for? That's one of their key factors I think is really helpful for you. What are the ages? What do they like? And what need is it serving? And so with our product, for example, you can create like a routine builder. And so you can package things up. So you can ask are you looking for, mealtime, nursery, traveling, car, toys? And then if they're looking for this, you can use conditional logic. So now we're getting a little bit into the weeds. But okay, if they're looking for bath time stuff, you can ask a little bit more about bath time. Do they, is it for a shower? Is it for a bath? Is it for like a 5-year-old where they might want some motorized things, or for a little baby where it might like a floating rubber ducky or something? And then from there, okay, they're looking for like travel, car seat related stuff because they're going to be traveling. And sorry, I don't mean to go too deep into the rabbit hole.
So you basically almost kind of like step them through the process of buying. What do you want to buy? Who are you buying it for? And then you'd have a kind of decision tree. We'd say you work out, okay, well, they're in the feed time category. What are you looking for? Have you thought about this kind of thing?
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
I can see that being useful. And what is the, okay, I think we're getting on to another question, which is top tips for running a quiz, right? So for example, how many questions what are your top tips for running a quiz? My question would be, how many steps is a good number of steps to have? So for example, I, occasionally do surveys, and after about 5 minutes, I get a bit bored and start just clicking things randomly. How should people, take into account that customers are time rich and time poor and anyway, how do you do it?
Yeah. So my general rule of thumb is as few questions as possible for that exact reason. People don't really want to be answering fluffy, irrelevant questions. But if it adds value to what they're going to get in the end, then sure, they can go through with it. So maybe 5 to 7 questions. And then within those questions, you want to start with some of the easier questions. So maybe something like, hey, what's your first name? As opposed to, what's your email? How can I, spam you in your inbox? So you kind of want to build up, use micro conversions. So as they're getting more comfortable and answering easier questions, then you can maybe ask more specific questions. If it's an adult, what is your age? That's something that maybe is a little more, people might perceive as invasive. So yeah, shorter is better. As you can imagine, Typeform has a great data point on this. It's kind of like a declining curve, logarithmic curve. So the completion rate with each question will decrease. So you have to kind of do some small calculations, or just think, is this question worth a 3% drop off here? And if you're getting something that's really valuable and how you're going to be segmenting your email flows, or what products you're going to be recommending, then yeah, maybe it is worth it. But if you're asking like, if you were a season, what season would you be? How are you going to use it? That's that's when, Trevor's starting to click, I don't care. It's a silly question. So in short, just ask however few questions you can while still extracting value from every question that you ask.
Okay. So what other tips do you have for running a quiz?
Yeah. So I think probably
let's try and get to 5. You've done 1. Let's do another 4.
Okay, sure. Most important is value. That there has to be an exchange of value. And this is getting to our first point, right? Like, why would somebody do it? Well, they'll do it because they're going to get something in the end. And so whatever that is, it could just be an ebook. It could be the recommendation. It could be simplifying the buying process. You want to just make that upfront clear, and you want to deliver on that. So I think that's key, because in exchange, you're getting their contact information. You're getting, you're learning about them and their why. So that's critical. So I think that's one of the other foundational things. 3 is think about what you're looking for in terms of segmenting. Like, what data points would you need to improve your email or your SMS program? Also, it does extend to paid ads, as we discussed. So I think where you're having gaps in your marketing would be really helpful to guide, what questions do I ask so I can fill those gaps with the customer data. Then from there, I would say maybe building out the flows, and then getting an understanding of how you would build out sequentially your flow and then use the data. So for example, with Klaviyo, Klaviyo is fantastic because you can basically build once and then scale infinitely. So you can add dynamic personalization. But what would you include in there? That would ideally be the recommended product. So how you would build out the flows, and then how you would kind of like extract the customer data to recommend a particular product would be really helpful. Then I think maybe you'd want to dig into your analytics and kind of like segment the data by highest lifetime value. So what are your most important in terms of like revenue customers? What are some of the traits that kind of bind them together? And it could be location, it could be the type of kid that they're buying for. You know, like a newborn, maybe you're spending more because you need all these supplies for a newborn. A 5-year-old might be like one or two smaller things. But how can you like know what's most important for you to learn? And then how can you gather that from your customer? So I think getting an understanding of your customer profile from a data-driven perspective would be really helpful to guide what you want to ask in the quiz.
Okay, great. So I think we've covered a lot of ground on quizzes. So I'm going to now move kind of left field slightly. I'm going to ask you, I like to finish with a fluffy question. So,
all right,
you know, something totally you can be, you know, I like to ask people, what has inspired you recently? Could be anything.
So recently I watched, and I don't know if this is on Netflix in the UK, Kanye West has a documentary called Genius.
Right. Okay. Did he name that?
Yes, he did. A self-proclaimed genius. But you know, it was surprisingly really inspiring because it basically shows behind the scenes footage of Kanye when he was, you know, like early 20s, and he was just scrapping to make it. But he had such a deep belief in himself and his talents that he deserves to be, you know, like at the top of the global stage. And so it shows his relentless work ethic, his belief in himself, and like how he just made things happen and like scrapped it together when record labels wouldn't give him a deal and he had to like couldn't afford record studio time. And so just to see him, frankly, I'm not a Kanye West fan now, but seeing like where he was back then, that really inspired me because he just worked and kind of like took these lumps of rejection and didn't let it get to him. So excellent. I do recommend it.
Okay. Even for non-Kanye West fans.
Totally. It's more just about dedication to the craft and belief in yourself.
Because it's one of those things that I know nothing about Kanye West and I've no idea why he's famous. As in, I don't know anything about his music. He's you know, he's really, really famous, but it's entirely passed me by. Maybe it's an age thing. I don't know.
Yeah. I agreed, but don't even think about, I mean, like the music is kind of like, it's there, but it's in the background. It's about him as a person. And I just think it's a really interesting story.
Again, that's been really interesting. Thanks very much. So anyway, thank you for taking the time to do this podcast today.
Likewise. Thank you, Trevor, for having me. And yeah, I love talking about quizzes and helping. And I think it's kind of like right at the cornerstone of what brands that are transitioning from Amazon to kind of building their own channel would benefit from. So please feel free to reach out to me, Gen, Gen at prehook.com. And happy
Great.
to
I'll put a link in the description as well. And as usual, I started out not really knowing much about this, but now it sounds like a really good idea. I'm convinced.
You know what? Just like with all marketing, you test it out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But probably, you know, to your question of like, how do you know it's working? Just look at the revenue numbers, look at the list growth, look at the data that you're gathering and learning about from your customers. And then that's up for you to decide, you know, once you're gathering that, but worth a test, I think.
Excellent. That's really good advice. Okay. Thanks so much, Glenn. Good luck for the future.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks,
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.